night, so he's ready. Like Brooke said, my name is Kayla Blaes. I own Kayla Blaes Photography. I launched Kayla Blaes Photography officially on May 1st, 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. It was a very scary time to start a new business, but it has all worked out. When I first started out, I focused on my hometown area in southeast Kansas, just because that's where I knew the most people. We were still fairly new to Stillwater. We lived in Stillwater at the moment. And it's just hard to build a business anyways, but it's really hard when you don't know anybody in the area you live in. So my hometown took to me really quick. They supported me. And definitely during the pandemic, it was easy because they knew me, they trusted me, they knew that I would follow safety protocols. We'd make sure we got through it the best we could. And it was helpful. I had a lot of people that, like my best friend, she was like, yeah, you can use my kids anytime. And so that's just kind of how it started. And it was like, oh, hey, I saw those pictures, So we kind of have, it's hard to think about it, but I do think that we have like kind of two divisions. We cover southeast Kansas, around Yates Center, Cherryville area where we're both from, and then obviously Ponca City area. I spend half my time there on weekends, so every other weekend or so I'm usually back home, shooting there and doing different things, and then spend half the other weekends here. We're hoping as we start growing more in Ponca City that we'll be in Ponca City a lot more than driving to Kansas every weekend, because it does become a lot. And when we first started, we were in Kansas almost every weekend during the fall because I didn't have business here, but I had business there. And when you're starting, you got to go where the business is and where people are gonna. So Kayla Blaes Photography started one night just randomly. I told my husband, I said, I've never thought I could ever own a business. I just didn't seem that being my thing. It wasn't something that was built for me. I just didn't have the confidence in myself. And at that point, I was scared of people pretty much. I could have never have done this. I didn't talk to strangers. It just wasn't. And one night I told my husband, I said, I love photography. He's like, yeah, I know. That's why we always have to buy the best iPhone so you can take pictures everywhere we go. And I said, I've always wanted to be a photographer. And he goes, well, why haven't you? And I'm like, I don't know. And it was a good question because I didn't know. And I'm like, well, I don't know where to start. So I immediately, that night, he goes, well, I think you should start taking classes. And I'm like, well, let's talk about this. Well, pretty much he got me enrolled in classes that night. And he's definitely the type that you tell you want to do something and he's going to help you. That's what he does for a living too, is he helps people. And so he's been definitely the one that's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Yes, that makes sense. So I immediately started some classes with a couple different places. And I remember my very first class, I opened up and I was like, oh yeah, no, I can't do this. Because it was just like aperture, F1 stops, and all this. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know. We're good. I just like to take pictures. And so, and they covered equipment and stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know about this. Well, I went from what I would consider a fancy camera at that time to, I think I have 3 or 4 cameras now and I don't know, 10 lenses. I'm sure he can tell you. He's the one that every time I buy one, but excuse me. And so it kind of started there. I was like, well, I'm going to take classes. So I started that about 8-9 months before we actually launched the business because I wanted to make sure I was ready when I started. I didn't want to just be like, oh, hey, I like to take pictures. Let me take your picture. So we did that, did some classes. It kind of worked out that it started during the pandemic. I was working from home at the time. So it seemed like I had a lot more free time than, than normal. And so I just started with message my friend and be like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Let's take some pictures. And so that's kind of why it started. And like I said, we started in southeast Kansas and built there. And now we're pretty much, it's hard. I can't take a whole lot of new customers there. It's busy enough that when I'm back there on the weekends, I usually shoot 20 plus sessions in 2 days. So, a little bit about what we do. When we first started, I mainly just did families. That's really all I kind of wanted to do. And since then, we've really grown. I have my website going behind, and we have some different images, but I've slowly added in newborn. That was really intimidating to me at first because, there's a lot that goes to newborn photography. Not only just knowing what to do and how to wrap the babies, but all the props, all the different accessories. And so I told myself I would never do weddings. I told Shane literally, I was like, I will never shoot a wedding. I want nothing to do with weddings. I do weddings. And it started my very first wedding was, she was the little sister to one of my best friends growing up. She had messaged me a couple times. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. Like, sorry. She's like, no, I really want you to. You'd be great. And I'm like, nope, I don't have the equipment. I don't, a couple, 3 months before their wedding, she messaged me and was like, hey, I never hire anybody because I know you're going to do this. And I'm like, okay, we're doing this. And so that night excuse me. That night I got on and bought some new equipment that I knew I would need for the wedding, and we did it. Shane is my assistant during my weddings, definitely starting out. I don't have money to hire people, so he, not maybe his fun thing to do on his weekends off, but he's there, and he's, doesn't matter if it's a 10, 12-hour wedding, he's right there beside me the whole time. And we've been told that we work great together. I don't know that he likes that, but we do it. So, so now I don't take on a whole bunch of weddings just because it's not something that I want to do full time. It's not my thing. I don't want to do it all the time. I love it, but it's a lot. This year I think I have 5 weddings scheduled, and the most I've done is 2 to 3 in a year. So it's going to be a very exciting year for that. We've added real estate photography about this time last year, I think. That one was also kind of we were selling our house, and our realtor at the time, I won't name names, he might be in the room, was like, hey, you're a photographer. You're going to take your listing pictures. Oh, okay. Like, I could do that. It's just a house. Like, there's no people. This will be easy. It was not easy. It was probably the most stressful thing I've ever done. My husband came home from work the first day. He's like, how'd the pictures go? And I'm like, I hate them. Like, we're not using them. And, like, I was super stressed. And, like, I don't know. How many times did we shoot the pictures? 3 or 4 times before I was satisfied. So, but in the end, I was like, oh, I really like real estate photography. I need to buy a new lens. So I bought my new lens. Hey, it makes a way, if you have the right equipment, it really is a lot better. So we started real estate, which is really fun, and I love it. Shane had always told me that he thought I should be a realtor because I love houses, and I'm always on Zillow. So this is a way that I get to do what I really love to do and still incorporate it with it. So then this summer, we started our drone classes, and we are both licensed remote pilots. So we are both licensed to do our drone, so we can do commercial drone photography. That also started with just a random conversation. Corbin was at our house that night and said, I've always joked about that. I might just get my license and fly a drone. I was like, oh, we've kind of talked about it too. And he's like, yeah, I'll just hire you guys. So that night, Corbin wasn't even back to Ponca City. We bought a drone. And now we have 2 drones. But going through the classes for that was very interesting. It was really fun to be able to do it right beside Shane, just because this whole thing has just been both of us through it. It took us about 2 solid weeks of every night, from the time he'd get home from work to bedtime to our weekends through it. It was really fun. We learned a lot. Sometimes it was very overwhelming for me just because it's a lot that they cover. It's really interesting. If you do have a drone, you should definitely look at getting a license. You learn a lot, and there's a lot of things that we would have never thought that you were supposed to do and stuff. It is interesting to us. Both, most of Ponca City is restricted airspace, and so. But when you look at your larger towns like Stillwater and stuff, they don't have as much restrictions as here. So, like, if we have to fly for a real estate session, we have to put a submission in at least 3 days before we can fly to get it approved, just because of some of them will have, like, you can go so much feet above before you have to have approval, but most of it, to get high enough for the real estate even, we have to have approval. So that was a fun process. He did beat me on the test by like 2 points. So we have 2 studios. We have a studio here in Ponca City, and we have a studio in Yates Center. Our studio in Yates Center was our first one. It's kind of a cool little setup. There's a group that got together and bought an old church right off of downtown in my hometown, which is a very rural, small little community, and they called it Town Hall. They've turned a lot of, like, where the nurseries used to be, classrooms, into little business places. So I have 2 rooms. I have one where my actual backdrops and stuff are set up, and then I have what I call my newborn room with my newborn posing system and different things. But it's really nice. They've got, I think there's 6 or 7 of us businesses and it's really cheap, it's reasonable. We all kind of pitch in to help out, and it's a really cool setup to get people indoors without you having to buy, like, a space and stuff. So we started it, I think, January of last year, and it's more than paying for itself. Like, it's way busier than I would have ever thought. Our Ponca City studio, so we officially kind of launched in Ponca probably in April. That's about when we moved up here. My husband's worked up here for over 5 years, but he was commuting from Stillwater because I worked at OSU. And so when I stepped away from OSU to do photography full time, he was like, yeah, no, I'm not commuting anymore. We're moving. And so once we got up here, that's when I really started pushing Kayla Blaes Photography in Ponca. So we started in City Central with a little room on the second floor. Excuse me. And it was really great. We knew we needed a space just to see if it was something that was going to work in Ponca for us, and if we wanted to continue with a studio space. And so we've recently moved. Our grand opening was actually in January. We've moved to a space over on Turner, right by Trout, that is about 5 times bigger than where we were. And it is insane now. It's just, there's so much open space. And so we have our backdrop system area. We've done a shiplap wall. We've done, excuse me. We've put up like some brick wallpaper. You might be on call in a second. We put up some brick wallpaper on one wall. So that way we have 3 easy backdrops, just real quick, that we can move around and get you different things during your session and just kind of get you a variety. We'll be able to set up different Christmas setups this year that way without having to move. Most of my stuff, my studios have always been small enough that I have to move everything every session. And it would take me hours to set up for one session just to get everything moved and ready. So this is nice. I can set it up, leave it up, we're good. In December of 21, I decided to step away from my full-time job and make photography my main focus, which was really scary. Definitely, since I never saw myself owning a business, let alone being able to like keep it going and be successful at it. One night I told Shane, I had just had a super busy fall season. I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I'm gonna have to slow down with photography. I said, I'm gonna have to step back, because by the time I went to work full time, I was literally doing photography full time. I said, I can't. I was missing out on everything that I still enjoyed. I think we still even had season tickets that year, and I don't know that I made it to any of the football games. And that's not, sorry guys, I love my OSU football. So when I realized, like, okay, I live in town, 5 minutes from the stadium, and I'm not making these games, like, this isn't working for me. So I told him that. He said, well, maybe you need to look at it the other way. Maybe you need to step away from OSU. I was like, whoa. Like, let's not get too serious here. And he said, I really think you should just see where it goes. Take a year off or so and just focus on it. And so that's what we did, which was probably not the smartest time to do it since that's your slow season. But we came out of it really worked. It's going great. We I mean, just the amount of things we've been able to add with me doing it full time. It's scary, but it's working. There's a lot of days that I'm super stressed about it, but he's right there encouraging me and like, no, you got this. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to do this, but I don't know how to do it. Well, he'll help find a way to do it. Like, he says this is my business, but it's really ours. He just says that because he doesn't want to work it anymore. He does like to ask when we set our goals for each year that, is this the year that you're going to start paying an assistant? No, probably not. I like that free labor. I mean, he only complains every now and then. So it's been a struggle, but it's been fun. I definitely couldn't do it without Shane. So one thing that we did this year that was really fun is we're always looking for ways to grow the business, but doing it in fun ways that are also going to be fun for our clients. And we decided we were going to plant sunflowers, which the farm also needed. We farm still back in Kansas too, so it's not like when we are in Kansas we're just not doing. He's usually farming, I'm usually taking pictures. We had a field that actually by the soil, soil sample results that it really could have used sunflowers. It really could help that soil. So my father-in-law was like, yeah, you can put it on my field. And I'm like, oh, well, we're going to use ours. And he's like, oh, no, just do it on mine. So we worked out a deal with my in-laws, and we did it together. And it was fun. How many acres did we have? 24 acres. Of course, we had a drought this year. And so at one point, I had been doing some pre-bookings for it. Shane said, you need to just not mention sunflowers. It's not raining. Like, and he goes, I don't know if this is going to work out. And thankfully it did, and they were gorgeous, and it was so much fun for not only the photography side, the farm side, and just personally. But I did 45 sessions in 10 days. They are back in Kansas at our farm, so I moved in with my in-laws for 12 days. They didn't seem to mind. But I did 45 sessions in those 10 days, and that was mainly after 5 p.m., just because the way the sunflowers faced, I could only do evening sessions. And so it was a lot, but it was so fun. Now, I'm not going to lie, when we finished that last session, I headed south pretty quick because I just wanted my bed. And I told Shane, it took me a while to get caught up on editing from that. And it was a while before I said, yeah, I don't know that we're doing this again. But we are. We have plans to, it was fun for everybody. And I mean, even that day, every time my father-in-law would come out to the field that night, he'd be like, well, we might just do a McKinn at this field. And I'm like, no, give me a second. Like, so for our future plans, we just continue to grow here in Ponca City. That's where our main focus is now, is getting business in Ponca and getting going. It's really hard in a town where you're new. We don't, Shane's been here for 5 years, so he knows a decent amount of people, but you're not from here, and it is harder to start a business in a town like that. So we've had some struggles, but it's been great. I've only been here since April, and I feel like I don't even remember. I think it was one of the chamber events. I told Shane, I was like, 10 people walked in a row, and I knew all 10 people. I'm like, that's a big deal. Because it used to be when I'd come to things with him, I'd be like, I don't know anybody. If you didn't work at RCB, I didn't know you. And honestly, I probably didn't even know all of them. And so it's been great. It's been a journey. It's been fun. Some days are stressful. I mean, just like any business. But I look forward to it, and hopefully we're going to get back in. The beginning of the year has been a little rough for us. We've had a lot going on. So but we're getting ready to hit the ground running again this month. So I think that's about all I have. Does anybody have any questions? You're not allowed to ask a question.
What's your favorite to shoot? What pictures? I know you said weddings aren't your favorite.
Yeah.
What else?
Seniors. Seniors have quickly became my favorite, mainly because each session is completely different. Even, that's the one thing I like about photography, and that's one reason I won't pick just one thing to do and only do one, is because I like that it's never the same thing. Like this weekend, one day I'm going to have families. The next day I have a senior. But seniors, every session's completely different. And you get to work with them, and you get to learn their personality. You get to bring that personality out. You get to focus on what is all about them, I look back at my senior pictures, and I didn't do a whole lot of what I was into, and I always try to get these hey, you do dance, let's do some dance stuff, let's do, that's you need to, I think senior pictures are all about kind of capturing that moment right now and what you're interested in. So I think that's why it's so much fun. And they're just, a lot of them will come in and be like, I don't like my picture taken, I'm not photogenic, and then afterwards you're like, really? These are gorgeous. And so it's just fun to get them to open up and have fun. And that's probably definitely my favorite.
Is your website the best way to book a session?
Yes, or Facebook. We just recently launched our new website. Media Matters did that for us. And it's up to date and current. But yeah, that or Facebook is a good way to reach out. Yes? Probably just follow along. Follow my Facebook, kind of help share, if I'm doing different giveaways or just different posts that I make. And then if you do need a photographer for anything, just give us a shot. Let us quote it for you and just see if it's something that we can work together on.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of 1 Million Cups, we want to thank you for coming today and speaking
Awesome.
and telling us your
Thank
story.
you.
So we really appreciate it. And